I'd like for you to meet Winston. Just look at this beautiful dog. You wouldn't know it, but Winston's life used to be terrible. The Humane Society of Missouri's Animal Cruelty Task Force rescued him from a hoarder. He lived with dozens of other animals in absolute filth. His cage covered in feces. Winston was so matted, you couldn't see his gorgeous eyes. He had infected wounds, maggots. He was hungry and afraid. When he finally got some much-needed veterinary care, they found out he was heartworm positive. If the Animal Cruelty Task Force hadn't saved Winston from that horrible place, he would have died there. The day Winston was rescued was a second chance for him. Almost immediately, that matted hair was shaved. The Humane Society of Missouri's veterinarians treated him for heartworms. He was cared for by their loving staff. He didn't have to go to bed cold and hungry anymore. And after a long recovery, Winston was adopted by an amazing family. He'll never have to suffer again. Watch what Winston is up to today and see how the Animal Cruelty Task Force gave him a new leash on life.
This is Winston. He's a 3-year-old poodle mix. Winston's favorite things are running in the yard, playing, going for walks, and just hanging out with the family. We live in South City, not very far from the Humane Society of Missouri's facility, and I hadn't been in there 30 seconds and I met Winston, at least through the cage. And I just knew I had to get to know a little more about him.
He called me and said, "Hey, I think I might have found a dog for us." And I said, "Okay," and he said, "I'm gonna shoot you a picture." So he sent me a picture, and I took one look at Winston's face and I sent a message back to him, "Do not come home without that dog." So as I was getting off work, I called to see my husband to see what the process was and how things were going. He said, "Well, I think it's gonna be a little bit. Why don't you stop by on your way home?" So I did, and went right in and sat on the floor, and Winston came up and curled up in my lap and just looked at me and basically said, "I love you. I want you to love me. Can I come home with you?" Is exactly the expression he had on his face.
I went through the interview process, and when we said, yes, we want to adopt Winston, that's when the Humane Society shared with us some of the details that he had been in a hoarding situation with many animals, and he just had a rough life and had not really been doing very well, and it took several months of great work by them to get him to a point where he was ready for adoption, and we're so happy about that. He's had 11 teeth pulled. He has some vision issues, but he's still a dog, and dogs are dogs, and they're very forgiving despite what they come out of.
After everything that he had been through, you could see that he just has the spirit of survival. Everything that he's been through, he has a big heart. He doesn't shy away from people. He's not aggressive. He's not timid, but just his instinct to survive and to want to be a happy dog and to be in a loving family and be part of a family, I think that's his will to survive.
Why would you spend that kind of effort and resources on one animal? All it would take is 2 minutes with Winston, and I think that would be answered for itself, because dogs like Winston don't come along every day, and had the Humane Society not been willing to do that, I would have never had the opportunity to make him a part of our family.
Animals are one of God's beautiful creations. I think it would just be a huge tragedy if there were not organizations like the Humane Society that take the time and the money and do what they can to take care of these creatures for us.
Here with me now is Mike Perkins, Director of the Humane Society of Missouri's Animal Cruelty Task Force. How exactly does the Animal Cruelty Task Force train for things like this? How do you train for these type of rescues?
Well, all of our investigators go through the LETI training through the University of Missouri-Columbia. There's 3 levels that they go through for formalized training. We have in-house training, we have swiftwater rescue training, and all of the training that other investigators learn throughout the years is then passed on to our investigators. But it's a very formalized training process that we have them go through.
Just this one rescue that we're talking about, and there are so many more, but just this one, what does something like that cost?
Thousands of dollars. There's so many hours that are put into planning the logistics, the equipment that's being taken up to these rescues, paperwork that's done that nobody sees behind the scenes. There's fuel costs, transportation costs, veterinary costs once we get back here, and then the shelter costs of the constant upkeep of the animals.
Yeah. How does the Animal Cruelty Task Force help bring these people to justice?
We work with the sheriff's departments and law enforcement throughout the state of Missouri. So anytime we come across a case like this, we always write our report up. We're very specific on all of our observations, and then we present them to the sheriff's department, who in turn turns it over to the prosecuting attorney's office for possible charges.
You talked about the expense of operations like this. This doesn't come from tax dollars. This comes from
None.
Donations, right?
Yes,
So the donations are key.
It is absolutely key. Without the donations, we couldn't do it. We could not help these animals at all.
Why should somebody call you if they need help?
Animals are abused and neglected, and there's nobody else that's going to do it. So who are you going to call? You're going to call the Animal Cruelty Task Force, 314-647-4400, and we will investigate every call that comes in for any type of abuse or neglect for these animals throughout the state of Missouri.
24/7.
24/7, 365.
365 days a year. You just heard firsthand how much time, effort, and money go into these rescues. Can you imagine? What if somebody dropped off 78 animals at your house tomorrow? They were all very sick. They needed to be shaved down because their fur was so matted. They have skin infections, eye infections. Some are missing teeth from eating rocks and wood chips. Some need special surgeries and months of follow-up care. How could you possibly handle that? How much do you think it would cost to care for all 78 of them?
The Humane Society of Missouri cares for hundreds of animals at a time, all the time. And it comes with a hefty price tag. Before we even leave on a rescue, we have to pay for supplies. Our rescue vehicles need gas and routine maintenance. The team needs special equipment to safely rescue each animal. Then there's the cost to care for all the helpless animals that we rescue. The vet care, the medications, the cost is just staggering. Without the donations, there would be no Animal Cruelty Task Force. Their stories wouldn't have the happy endings they do now. Make a donation of any amount and it will be doubled by Purina up to $25,000. If you believe in the work our task force does, you can become an honorary member just by donating at the $50 level or setting up a monthly donation. We'll send you an official welcome letter with ways to help animals in your community. You also receive this I Crack Down on Cruelty magnet to display in your home or on your vehicle. You can help them crack down on cruelty. This great phone bank is standing by to take your call. Charge your donation to Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express. Our toll-free number is 877-803-0078, or make a secure donation online at hsmo.org.